The practice of law is not always the practice of justice. We seek law based upon the consent of the governed and sustained by the organized opinion of mankind. For remember this, where law ends, tyranny begins. A hotel fire with the flames reaching greedily for people trapped is horrible enough when it's an accident. But this fire was no accident. It was cold-blooded, premeditated murder. A man's body was found in the room where the fire started. He had been knifed in the back. And the killer, the one responsible for all this terror and suffering, standing right there. The room clerk spotted him standing in the crowd. At least, he said Kenny Jason was in the dead man's room just before the fire. The police bought that, and so did the press.
All right, Harry. Yeah, you take care of it. Well, Captain Considine, it's good to see you.
Well, you can drop the captain part, Jake. I'm not on the force anymore, remember?
Well, it's good to see you anyhow, Matt.
Well, thanks. You too. How about checking me in for a visit with a client?
Well, jail's all yours. Write your own ticket. Now, attorney Matthew Considine. Client, who's your client, Matt?
Kenny Jason.
You're kidding.
Am I?
Why, you must be. Why, that little rat could have killed 20 or 30 people, burned them alive. It's a miracle that he didn't. Benson, the cop on the beat, died this morning from third-degree burns. Why, somebody ought to take him out.
Has he been tried and found guilty already? I never heard anything about it.
No, but everybody knows that he did it.
Well, I must have studied the wrong books. I thought a man was presumed innocent until his guilt was proved in the court of law.
Yes, but Matt, you...
Do I get that pass or don't I?
Yes, Mr. Considine. You get it.
And while you're about it, you might as well put this lady's name on the same pass. This is Mrs. Jason, Kenny's mother.
Kenny! Oh, Kenny, you're all right. Kenny, you're all right.
Oh, sure, Ma. What'd you expect? Nobody's been giving me a bad time. They know they haven't got anything on me.
Haven't they, Kenny? Are you positive?
Oh, son, this is Mr. Considine. He's going to be your lawyer.
I know who he is.
I've been telling him all about you. Oh, you and I've tried to look out for each other ever since your daddy died. How hard it's been sometimes with me working and all.
Yeah, we've really had it.
Son, I told him you've been a good boy. If he'd gotten into trouble, it's my fault because, well, there just wasn't enough time in the day for me to really be a good mother to you.
I'll bet you had him bawling like a baby.
Kenny.
Look, Ma, this guy used to be a cop, right? Okay, I'm up to my neck in cops. I don't need him, too. Now, why don't you get out of here? Both of you.
Okay.
Mrs. Jason, perhaps Kenny is right. We should leave him alone.
He's just talking crazy. I don't know what's the matter
Oh,
with
guard. We'll open up.
Please, you don't understand. He didn't mean that.
The guard will take you out to the office. I'll be along in a minute.
I said I wanted to get rid of both of you.
Now, look, Kenny. You open your mouth like that to your mother again, and I'll close it for you. Maybe it hurts your pride to have your mother fighting for you.
You know all about this, don't you?
I know this, that you're lucky to have somebody fighting for you. I came here to get at the truth. How about it?
I've been telling the truth. Nobody wants to believe me. That's the angle. Just a quick trial, that's what they want. And somebody to take the fall.
Now, look, Kenny, I'm not here to hold your hand. I was a copper for a good many years, and I never remember arresting anybody who thought he was guilty. I want to hear your side of this, period. Now, look, I'm your lawyer. I'm going to see that you get every break under the law. But I told your mother this.
If I wasn't convinced that you're innocent, I'm going to plead you guilty.
Okay. Here it is for what it's worth. I meet a guy named Russell.
Nobody else could have killed Russell but Kenny Jason.
Objection. The witness is stating a conclusion.
Objection sustained. The witness will confine himself to answering the questions.
Your witness. You understand, don't you, that the defendant is being tried on the charge of murder? This may depend on what you tell the court. Now, you testified under oath that you saw the defendant enter the hotel lobby with a man known to you as Al Russell. But they stopped at your desk and you gave Al Russell his key. You further testified that the two of them went to Russell's room and that you never saw either one of them again until after the fire had swept through the hotel. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. After the kid stabbed Russell in the back and then set fire to the room.
Now, just answer my question. Your Honor, I respectfully request that the witness's last statement be stricken from the record.
So ordered.
Now, were you at your desk in the hotel lobby at all times?
Yes.
The defendant couldn't possibly have left the hotel before the fire without being seen by you.
No, sir.
Well, you just answer my questions, we get along fine. Now, did this Al Russell ever place any bets through you?
No, he did it.
Objection, this is irrelevant. Your Honor, not only is it relevant, it is vital. I will later prove that this witness combined bookmaking with his duties as a room clerk, and that he was frequently absent from his desk for long periods of time. Shortly after you and Al Russell entered his room, you say you received a telephone call.
That's right, sir.
From the side of the phone conversation that you heard, have you any idea who called Russell?
No, sir, I don't.
What happened after he hung up?
Well, Russell gave me a $50 bill. Sent me out to buy a bottle of whiskey. He told me not to hurry back.
Was he expecting someone?
Seemed like it. Only like I said, I knew the liquor store wouldn't sell me the stuff because I was underage. And that's when I ran into Skipper and asked him to buy the bottle for me.
Now, Kenny, about this elusive gentleman known as Skipper, what do you suppose ever happened to him?
I don't know. He slugged me and took off with Russell's money. That's the last I saw of him.
This derelict, this tramp, who slept in alleys and doorways, suddenly and conveniently vanishes into thin air. And you ask the court to believe that he could prove your story is true? That you weren't in the hotel at the time of the murder and the subsequent fire?
Yes, if you could find him and get him to tell the truth.
Captain Hardy, as the officer who arrested the defendant, I have called you back to the stand to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
Captain, has your department made an effort to locate this man known as Skipper?
We have, sir, and without success.
And might we conclude from that that such a person does not in fact exist?
Objection.
Thank you, Captain. Coldly and with premeditation, the defendant tried to conceal the brutal knife-in-the-back murder of Al Russell with a cloak of fire, believing that the flames would wipe out the evidence of his guilt, not caring how many innocent people might die agonizing deaths as a result. All he wanted was the money he knew Russell had in that room. There can be no question that Kenny Jason is guilty of murder in the first degree. The penalty for his crime is and must be the full penalty of the law.
Mr. Considine?
Your Honor,
gentlemen of the jury, permit me to remind you again that the defendant is being tried on the charge of murder. The prosecutor's remarks regarding arson are wholly irrelevant. Now, shall we look at the case that the prosecutor has presented against Kenny Jason? The state's chief witness, the room clerk, says that Jason didn't leave the hotel before the fire. But you have only this bookmaker's word that he was not absent from his desk during the time in question. Jason has testified that he saw nobody in the hotel lobby before he left. A good 15 minutes before the fire, at least. Then the state has tried to establish as a motive for the murder the fact that Al Russell was supposed to have had considerable sums of stolen money in his room. Perhaps he had. But not one nickel of this money has ever been traced to Kenny Jason. And then the prosecutor has made a great deal of the fact that we haven't been able to produce a man named Skipper, a man who could confirm Jason's story. But the prosecutor hasn't produced Skipper either to disprove Jason's story. Not that I mean to suggest that the murderer of Al Russell is not in this room, because he is. No, he's not sitting at the defendant's table. Not that man. Look out there. The first, second row back from the railing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th seat.
Your Honor, I object. This is ridiculous. It's a trick.
Yes, Mr. Rager, it was a trick. But there wasn't a person in this room who wasn't willing to believe that the murderer was someone other than my client. As often as you've stated that Kenny Jason is guilty, you too expected that chair to be occupied by the real murderer. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk about something the law calls reasonable doubt, a principle of great importance when a man's life is at stake. The law, in its time-tested wisdom, decrees that when there's a reasonable doubt as to a man's guilt, he must be presumed innocent and set free. A moment ago, I proved that this reasonable doubt does exist in your minds. Yes, and in the mind of my colleague, the prosecutor.
Have you arrived at a verdict?
We have.
The defendant will please stand and face the jury. What is your verdict?
We find the defendant not guilty.
How about it, Considine? Were you right? Is there a chance, even an outside chance, you turn the murderer loose in the streets?
Yes?
Captain Hardy of Homicide to see you.
Send him in. Hello, Tom. Well, glad you came up. I hope there are no hard feelings.
Hard feelings? Why should there be? It's just a game, isn't it? We catch a murderer so you can get him off. So we can murder someone else so we can catch him again.
Go ahead, get it off your chest.
I've known you for 20 years, Matt. We pounded a beat together as rookies, remember? I never thought you'd sell us out.
What do you mean, sell you out?
Look, let's forget a certain rat named Al Russell was killed and your boy Kenny set the fire to cover up. A cop died pulling people out of that burning hotel. I had the job of telling his widow. It's too bad you couldn't have been with me. It's too bad you forget so quick how it feels.
Are you finished?
I got just one question to ask you.
Yes?
Why, Matt? Why did you get Jason off? I'd like an answer.
Look, Tom. You've been an officer long enough to know what I'm talking about.
You know how it is when you sense that a man is guilty, even when there's no evidence against him?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the other side of that coin. With all the evidence against Kenny, I say he's innocent. That's why I had to become a lawyer. Because I believe in the principle of innocence. Too many men are tried and convicted in the press. Yes, and sometimes by a police officer. He can only see the evidence of guilt.
You on the level about this?
Would I put Kenny on the stand if I had any doubt about it?
Okay, you've answered my question. You won yourself a case last night, Matt, but I got news for you. The real trial is just beginning. Only this time around, you're the defendant. And since you brought up the question of people being tried in the papers, here's an editorial you might like for your scrapbook. The most valiant efforts of our law enforcement agencies mean little when a tricky criminal lawyer turns a feather-brained jury into a troop of trained SEALs. You see what I mean?
Yes.
A word of warning, Matt. You can believe Jason's innocent. I say he's guilty. And sooner or later, I'm going to prove it. And I can still send him to prison on an arson charge.
I had told Kenny to go back to his former hangout to see if he could pick up some information about Skipper, while I went after Marty, the room clerk who had lied from page 1.
Duke, this Considine's on my heels every minute. It's like he knows something, like he's waiting for something to happen. Well, you got to do something about it, Duke. You just got to do something.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Don't worry about it. I'll get him off your tail. Just go back to your room and stay there. I'll drive by for you at 11 o'clock tonight. Right.
Keep walking, Marty. One of us has to tire of this arrangement. You make a little book on the side, Marty. How are you betting it's you who cracks?
I do. I'm gonna sleep.
That's right, Skipper. Get your rest. Here, I brought your dinner.
You're a pal, Duke.
That's right, and don't you forget it. You're lucky I found you before the cops did. They'd have had you on that stand telling how you clobbered Kenny Jason and took off with his money. They'd have tossed you in the can, Skipper, for the rest of your life.
You're a pal.
Yeah. A living, breathing doll. Drink up, Skipper. Tonight we're going to have a ball.
Hi, Duke. Glad you got here. Duke! Duke, no! Duke! Considine, you gotta help me. I'm in trouble.
Come into my office. All right, let's have it, Marty.
I hear you're a square shooter. You give a guy a break.
Oh, you've been reading my fan mail.
Look, I'm scared. I almost got killed last night, and I'm afraid to go to the cops.
Well, sure, Marty. As a perjurer, the police figure to give you some trouble. But it beats dying, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Good. Now, I'll do what I can for you. What do you want to tell me? Here, now, take it easy. You stay here and keep quiet. Who is it?
Hardy, I want to see you. In early, aren't you? Come on, we're going down to the Harbor Precinct Station.
Why, what's up?
They found Skipper, your missing witness, dead, with a knife wound in his back.
What's the rest of it?
They caught the murderer, too. Caught him leaving the scene of the crime. This is one you won't be able to talk him out of.
Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny Jason. Come on.
Wait here. I'll be back in a minute.
Jason knifed him and pushed his body off the breakwater. He might have got away with it, but he ran into a couple of tough breaks.
Yeah?
His body landed on the rocks below instead of in the water. But it was already daylight, and his second tough break came when the harbor police spotted him as he came off the breakwater.
How do they happen to be there?
They were having a beach party, and one of them fell down and busted his ukulele. Look, Matt, why don't you give up? This time it's cold turkey.
No, I don't get it. Why would Jason want to kill his alibi?
Well, let me lay it out for you. As I've been trying to tell you all along, the alibi was phony. It would only work as long as nobody could get to Skipper and make him talk. Well, Jason found him, and he made sure Skipper would never queer that alibi.
Well, maybe that's how it lays out for you, Tom, but I can't buy it.
And you can't duck it either. He's guilty. He was guilty all along.
Where have you got Kenny? I want to talk to him.
You're a lawyer, I'm a cop. I don't have to book him right away, and you're not going to see him till after he's booked.
Can I see where the body was found, or is that asking too much?
Come on.
All right, Considine, let's see you figure a way out of this one. The judge, the papers, Tom Hardy, they're the jury this time. And the verdict is going to be against Matt Considine. Criminal lawyer. Or criminal. Period.
Right down there on the rocks, high and dry. That's where they found him.
Low tide. Water just coming back in.
Yeah, stinks, doesn't it?
No, I like it.
I'm going back to town. You coming?
I'll see you later. High tide, 12:01 a.m. Low tide, 5:49 a.m. Skipper was soaking wet when they found his body. And if Kenny had killed him, he'd have been bone dry because the tide was already out when the police picked Kenny up leaving the breakwater. Play that on your busted ukulele, Captain Hardy. Mr. Jason, was Kenny home last night? Until when? 4 or 4:30. You wouldn't know who called him. You sure? Well, thank you, Mr. Jason. Thank you very much. Well, that was a lucky break, Duke. I mean, you're getting a tip on Skipper's whereabouts. Kenny told me you called him.
I'm glad to do it. Guy told me he'd seen Skipper hanging out down by the canneries. Thought he was holed up at Shacktown.
Yeah, hold up is right. And a hole about 6 by 3.
What do you mean by that?
He's dead, murdered. The cops picked up Kenny, but he's got an airtight alibi. The harbor police themselves are witnesses at the time Kenny was on the breakwater, and the tide table proves that Skipper was already dead by then, which could make me a lawyer without a client. Temporarily, unless you'd like to hire me.
Why would I need a lawyer?
Now, you know better than to ask a silly question like that.
I'm asking it.
Well, I'll ask you. What about Skipper?
What about Skipper?
You knew where to locate Skipper. You sent Kenny down there, only Skipper was already dead. Kenny didn't kill him. You did. Because he could have cleared the kid and left you standing right here. The police are going to be asking a lot of questions, Duke. Are you sure you have some good answers?
Try me. We'll see.
I'm not playing 20 questions with you, Duke. But I'll give you the answer to the big question.
Be my guest.
Okay. You killed Al Russell. And then you set fire to the room. You wanted that money. And you have the room clerk on your team. Only Marty now is afraid he's living on borrowed time and he's ready to sing. You're in trouble, chum. Kenny's going to walk right out of that frame you built around him. Only he's going to fit you, Duke, like an old glove. Captain Hardy, please. Matt Considine calling. Oh, hello, Tom. I want you to come down to the Acme right away. I just won first prize in the billiards contest. Yeah. And so ends the case of Kenny Jason. Each week we will present another file, and out of it we will meet another cast of human beings. Some in trouble, some in danger, some with the mistaken belief that they can twist the law to serve their own purposes. Matt Considine will represent people in all walks of life. His activities will not be confined to any one group or locale. His search of justice for his fellow man will take him into many corners of the world. His background and training as a captain of detectives gives him a singular insight that the average attorney doesn't gain in the ordinary practice of law, and that is to go farther in interpreting the rules than is expounded between the restricted covers of law books. For the practice of law is not always the practice of justice. I hope that we may meet again soon. Thank you.